On the day of the engagement, my fiancé walked into the banquet hall holding a child. In front of everyone, he said that he hoped I would treat this child as my own and let him take care of me in my old age. As long as you nod, I'll listen to you for the rest of my life and do whatever you ask. Without saying a word, I stepped forward and slapped him hard. Don't flatter yourself. I only said we'd have an engagement party, but I never said you'd be the groom. At my engagement party, my fiancé gave me a surprise. In the hall of a 5-star hotel, I was wearing a wedding dress custom-made overseas and specially air-freighted back. The white skirt glowed faintly under the lights. On both sides of the stage, clusters of red roses were in full bloom, and their fragrance wafted over. Refreshing. In the middle, there was a 10-layer wedding cake. Each natural cultured pearl on its surface was worth over $300,000. But this ceremony, which should have been filled with blessings, turned into a farce that everyone was watching in just a few minutes. And I, standing in the middle in my wedding dress, became the most ridiculous one in everyone's eyes. The man standing in front of me was wearing a custom-made suit that was designed to match my wedding dress. It was worth a full $5 million. But in his arms, he was tightly holding a baby. I didn't need to look closely. Just one glance told me that the child looked almost identical to him. Even so, when he said those words, I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. And my mind went blank. This child is my flesh and blood. I hope you can accept him. The whole place immediately erupted. Even more ironically, the big screen behind us was still playing our sweet photos on a loop. The guests and reporters couldn't hold back any longer and started whispering to each other. Today was supposed to be my engagement day with John. But not only was he late, but he also showed up with his illegitimate child. This wasn't an engagement. It was a public humiliation for me. Emily, I've always known you're kind-hearted. Can you take him in for the sake of the child and raise him as your own son this time? As long as you nod, I'll listen to you for the rest of my life and be willing to do anything for you. I stared at him, my eyes as cold as ice. I really couldn't believe that a man who usually obeyed me in every way would dare to say such things on such an occasion. And he was forcing me to agree to such an unreasonable request in front of everyone. The fiancé of Miss Emily Johnson, at our engagement party, was forcing me with his illegitimate child. It was so absurd that it made me want to laugh. I'm not a love-struck fool, and I won't be controlled by emotions. I chose not to pursue the matter of his betrayal. But he actually got even more presumptuous and started making demands. How shameless. But I didn't lose my temper on the spot. I tried my best to suppress my anger. After all, there were so many people here, and I didn't want to make things even more embarrassing. John, let's talk about this privately. Let's finish the ceremony first. This was my last concession and a way to save his face. But he was so stupid that he kicked the opportunity away. No, he was firm, his voice loud and cold. When he saw the bodyguard behind me about to take the child away, he hugged the child even tighter, as if I were some kind of evil stepmother. In his eyes, he seemed to be the tragic father fighting for his child. Emily, he's so young. Can't you just help once and accept him? I almost burst out laughing. Was he really so oblivious to the occasion? Or did he really think I was easy to bully? Do you think that just because there are so many people here today, I have to listen to you? The hand that was clutching my wedding dress had already formed into a fist, and the fabric was wrinkled. John, you betrayed me. It's your fault. But the child is innocent, and I really, really love you. Love me, I sneered. My tone as sharp as a knife. You love me. So you had a child behind my back. You love me. So you're forcing me to accept your illegitimate child in front of everyone. Do you think I can't see through your plan? You want him to be the heir of the Johnson family in the future and use him to control me and the Johnson family. After I finished speaking in one breath, his expression completely froze. Maybe he never thought that I would expose his little thoughts in front of everyone. He blushed and couldn't say a word. Seeing that the tough approach didn't work, he immediately changed his expression and softened his tone. Emily, As long as you're willing to adopt him, the engagement will go ahead as planned. Whatever you want me to do, I'll agree without hesitation. But I didn't want to listen anymore. Seeing me silent, he thought I was wavering and tentatively took a step towards me. The bodyguards didn't stop him. So he got bolder and took a few more steps forward. Emily. As soon as he touched my wrist, I shuddered all over as if I'd been touched by something dirty. I jerked my hand away from his and gave him a hard push. He wasn't prepared at all. Holding the child, he staggered backwards and finally fell to the ground with a thud. All my bodyguards were there, but no one dared to move unless I gave the order. Maybe he fell too hard and couldn't hold the child firmly for a moment. The child slipped out of his hands, and the ear-piercing cries immediately filled the whole place. The entire wedding scene was in a complete mess. He's only a few months old. Even if you don't agree, you don't have to be so cruel. He doesn't understand anything. You're so heartless. How could you lay a hand on a child? Are you heartless? Before the words were finished, I felt a sudden heat on my face. He slapped me. My ears were buzzing, and there was a metallic taste in my mouth. A wave of nausea welled up. But this slap made me completely sober. I didn't waste any more words. I turned around, picked up the scissors on the bar, and walked to the hem of the wedding dress. With a snap, the wedding dress worth tens of millions was instantly cut off by more than half. The fabric fluttered to the ground. Like a withering dream, I looked up, stared directly at him, and said word by word, "John, for the slap you gave me today, I'll make you pay for it with your whole life." I casually tidied up my clothes and stepped onto the stage in my high heels. I ignored the sneers and contempt in the eyes of those around me. I straightened my back and walked steadily to the center of the stage step by step. "I'm very grateful to all of you for coming today. I'm sorry for the little incident just now. Now I officially announce this banquet is cancelled." As soon as I finished speaking, there was an uproar below, and the buzzing discussions kept going. John's face turned ashen, looking as ugly as a cooked pig's liver. He knew very well that I cared about my reputation, so he deliberately chose this occasion today, bringing the child to force me to submit. Seeing his dejected look, I felt a sense of satisfaction in my heart. I continued, "But since you're all here, the Johnson family won't let you come in vain. We'll soon conduct an open tender for the Cloud Habitat real estate project. Those present should know that this is the first time the Johnson family has conducted an open tender to the outside world. The winner of the tender can sign a 5-year long-term cooperation agreement with the Johnson family." As soon as I said this, the scene immediately fell silent, and then boiled again. Compared with the previous gossip, this real business opportunity was what really mattered. Everyone began to calculate, and I just stood on the stage, with a slight smile on my lips, looking down at John, who was staring at me intently below, my eyes full of sarcasm. After the banquet was over, he didn't leave. He sat there in a daze in the corner, holding the child, with a blank look in his eyes. Hearing the footsteps, he looked up at me. There was even a bit of panic and regret in his eyes. I pretended not to see and walked straight up to him. "Emmy." As soon as he uttered one word, I slapped him hard. The clear sound echoed in the empty hall. The red mark on his face appeared quickly. But I still didn't feel satisfied. Who did he think he was? How dare he slap me in front of so many people? "Have you forgotten that everything you have now is given by me?" Before he could react, I slapped him again, even harder than before. The whole hall seemed to be shaking, and the slapping sounds were like blows to his heart. When I raised my hand to slap him again, he suddenly raised his hand to block it. "Emily, can't we talk things out nicely? You weren't like this before." I almost laughed out of anger at his hypocritical face. At this point, did he still want to reason with me? Did he still expect me to show mercy? It turned out that John didn't know me at all. He had no idea who I was. "John, you think too highly of yourself. Who do you think you are? Did I treat you too kindly, making you forget your place?" The moment I took off the wedding dress, I instantly became as cold as ice again. As soon as my aura changed, John immediately felt uncomfortable. People from the bottom rung like him simply couldn't stand this kind of pressure. Sorry. I just wanted the child to have a complete family. I sneered and leaned close to his ear. A complete family. I hear every twisted thought in your head loud and clear. John Smith's face turned pale instantly, like someone had publicly torn off his fig leaf. And his breathing grew rapid. He gritted his teeth, his voice trembling. If you still plan to marry me, don't. Before he could finish, I raised my hand to cut him off. I grabbed an uncleared wine glass nearby and splashed it hard in his face. The red wine missed the child perfectly, drenching only his face. In that instant, his face flushed red and white, like an overturned palette. Utterly spectacular. John, what do you think you are? Do you really think you're irreplaceable? I could find a man to marry in a minute. He wiped the wine off his face, his once refined features completely twisted, eyes blazing with fury. What do you mean? If not me, who else would you marry? He grabbed my wrist fiercely, the force leaving red marks on my skin instantly. Have you been seeing someone else all along? Emily Johnson. You can't even have children yourself, and you have the nerve to cheat. Seeing him completely lose it, I stomped hard on his instep with my 3-inch heels. He yelped in pain and loosened his grip, letting me pull my arm back. Still furious, I slapped him across the face. John, don't pin your filthy thoughts on me. You're the disgusting one. Always have been. Ha, ha ha. Fine. You win. He suddenly laughed, the sound echoing eerily in the empty hall. I wasn't scared. If he dared lay a finger on me, I had plenty of ways to make him regret it for life. Emily Johnson. Keep talking tough. I'll see who else would want you besides me. When you're kneeling and begging me to let you be the child's mother, well, see if you can still act this tough. With that, he straightened up and strode off. He seemed to think he knew me well, but he never understood I, Emily Johnson, never take back my words. Even if I could never have children in this lifetime, I'd never go back to trash like him. That same day, I had my assistant pass down the message. A shareholders meeting at 8 tomorrow morning. The next day, as soon as my car pulled up, I saw John standing at the company entrance waiting, dressed in a crisp suit with perfectly styled hair. He looked utterly respectable, if not for yesterday. I might have been fooled by that act. The man who cheated on me behind my scenes and humiliated me publicly could still pretend to be so innocent. Worse, he was the manager I'd promoted myself. And he had the audacity to block me here. I ignored him and walked straight in, but he reached out to stop me. Emily, you suddenly called a shareholders meeting. What are you announcing? Completely different from yesterday's arrogance. John now looked panicked, his voice shaking. I sneered and shoved his hand away. What's the rush? You're still with the company, aren't you? You'll find out soon enough. An hour later, in the Johnson family group conference room, I stepped onto the podium and announced something that shattered John completely. Now, everyone, please welcome the new president of Johnson Family Group, Ms. Emily Johnson, to the stage. That's right, today I'd formally reveal the new president. John and those old-school types never expected my parents to hand over the company reins to me so quickly. Some of them always thought John was the inevitable successor to the Johnson family. Because of that, many in the company had secretly curried favor with him, pulling strings and cutting corners with all sorts of underhanded moves. I knew all about it before. Since he was my fiancé, I didn't bother to care. But now, there was no need to hold back. He destroyed this path himself. He had no one else to blame. When John heard the news, he froze, bolting up from his seat. Emily, Ms. Johnson, your sudden takeover could seriously impact company projects, couldn't it? Besides, shouldn't something like the presidency be decided by a shareholder vote? I crossed my legs, lazily eyeing him. What? For me to manage my own family's company, I need your permission as an outsider. Also, if anyone's unhappy, just leave your resignation letter on my desk later. I won't keep a single one of you. That shut John up instantly, and the entire room of shareholders fell silent. too afraid to make a sound. The appointment documents will be distributed shortly. That's all for today's meeting. Dismissed. Without another word, I headed straight back to my office after the meeting. I had just sat down to organize my files when the door was slammed open. John Smith burst in, his eyes bloodshot, his face flushed red, looking at me like I was his enemy. No wonder I had just publicly announced the succession news at the shareholders meeting, and any hope he had was completely shattered. I had always known that deep down. He felt he would eventually become the head of the Johnson family, but this whole situation was one he had destroyed with his own hands. Emily Johnson, you're quite something, he spat out. Sneaking around behind my back like that. I let out a cold laugh, set down the files in my hands, crossed my arms, and stared at him icily. John, isn't this step you've reached today entirely your own doing? I put you in the position of general manager, letting you taste the glory days you never dared dream of before. Wasn't the taste of power intoxicating? So intoxicating that you forgot who gave you all this in the first place. With his abilities, he wouldn't even have gotten through the door of the Johnson family's business, let alone become a manager. But out of consideration for my fiancé, I had pleaded and cajoled my father to get him into that role. Unfortunately, he didn't appreciate it or understand gratitude. He never realized who was the true pillar supporting his future. If it weren't for the fact that you can't have children, would I have ended up like this? John said with righteous indignation, as if his affair and raising a love child were somehow for my benefit. He had crafted a grand excuse for himself that I couldn't conceive and would never have my own child. I sneered, pulled open a drawer, took out a medical report, and flung it straight at his face. John, so what if I can't have children? I have the entire Johnson group behind me. People lining up to get close to me and curry favor are endless. What makes you think you can act so high and mighty in front of me? Hearing this, John immediately bent down to pick up the document. My hand instinctively drifted to my abdomen. He could never have imagined that when he took advantage of me back then, I had actually gotten pregnant. But, is this child really mine? He stammered, his lips trembling. Yes, I replied. John, you probably never expected it, did you? 3 months ago, when you took advantage of me while I was drunk, it actually got me pregnant with your child. His face instantly lit up with joy, a smile spreading uncontrollably, as if he had stumbled upon a priceless treasure. But my gaze remained cold as ice. But it's a shame. I've already decided not to keep this child. With that, I tossed an abortion certificate in front of him. He froze, unable to believe it, then lunged forward and snatched up the paper still bearing the hospital stamp. Slowly, his hands began to tremble, shaking more and more violently. Then, I watched as his whole face flushed crimson, like he had been slapped hard, and he hurled the report and photos violently toward the door. I sat quietly on the sofa, watching him unravel, feeling nothing but satisfaction inside. No, impossible. How could this happen? How could you abort our child? That was our baby. He screamed at me, his hands tearing at his own hair as if he couldn't bear the blow, trying to use the pain to snap himself back to reality. I stared at his pale, haggard face, but my heart felt utterly unmoved. Maybe I had never truly loved him. Someone not chosen with your heart, no matter how hard you try, won't last. I think you know very well how that child came to be, I said coldly, though my hands clenched tightly at my chest. Outsiders only knew me as the executive assistant at the Johnson Group. But in reality, my parents had long been secretly handing over many projects to me, letting me gradually take charge and gain experience. That incident happened because I got drunk at a business dinner and woke up to find John had already done that to me. At the time, he held me and promised to take responsibility, telling me not to be afraid. A month later, I went for a checkup, and the doctor told me I wasn't pregnant and that due to an abnormal uterine position, it was very difficult for me to conceive. John seemed disappointed too, but back then, he pretended to be magnanimous, comforting me that he loved me for who I was and that having children didn't matter. And now, he had the nerve to bring a child he had with another woman right in front of me, expecting me to accept it. At the time, his gentleness and thoughtfulness once made my heart flutter for a moment, but now I see it was all an act. Things have reached this point. I won't give him any more chances. Emily, don't be like this. I was wrong. Give me one chance. It'll change. I'll make it up to you. He knelt before me, face etched with remorse, pleading in a low voice. If this hadn't happened, perhaps I might have believed a word he said. But after that day, I saw him clearly. The man standing before me was heartless and insatiable, a bottomless pit. If He'd just stayed content, even if he never achieved great things, He'd never have worried about money for the rest of his life. But those words, "can't have children," ripped off his mask. Asking me to raise his child with another woman was just him paving his own escape route. He knew exactly how capable he was. And he understood that everything he had now was entirely because of me. "I'm quite busy. If there's nothing else, you should leave." I stared at him. Not a shred of feeling remained in my heart. To me now, he was nothing. The most ridiculous part was how he kept his head bowed earlier, squeezing out a few forced tears when he thought I wasn't looking, putting on a pitiful show. "Emily, can't you see how sincere I am? How can you be so cruel?" He stammered tearfully, acting out his wounded act before me. Pity he didn't realize once a woman's heart turns cold, it's beyond his comprehension. I rose from the sofa in my high heels, walked deliberately towards him, and looked down at him coldly. "Is that so? I'm only following your example, learning how you used those despicable tactics against me. If you want to climb back up, want power, no one's stopping you. But you shouldn't have targeted me. Did you truly think I had no idea about the little schemes in your mind? And one more thing I never once said, from beginning to end, that I loved you." With that, without waiting for his reply, I turned and walked straight towards the door, leaving. On the way out, I instructed my assistant to move all my personal belongings to the CEO's office. Honestly, I never respected John deep down. He was timid and spineless, utterly lacking accountability. Even small projects handed to him in the company were always botched. Before, only because he was my boyfriend and carried the title of fiancé did I tolerate keeping him close. But now, there was no need to maintain that pretense. "Emily Johnson, you'll pay for this." Not long after I left the office, I heard John's furious roar from inside. Immediately after, the personnel appointment notice was sent to the company-wide group, and the cancellation of our engagement banquet was announced simultaneously. The news spread like wildfire through the company, but I couldn't care less. Early the next morning, as I sat at the dining table chewing on a steamed bun, a commotion erupted in the courtyard. Just as I started to get up to see what was happening, the door slammed open with a kick. John stood in the doorway, his face stubble-covered, clothes rumpled, hair tousled like a bird's nest. His eyes were bloodshot. Clearly, he hadn't slept. "Emily Johnson, you've really done it now. You take over the company, strip me of my position as general manager on day one, and publicly cancel the engagement. Did you ever consider my feelings before acting? How can you be so cruel, only caring about yourself?" He stormed towards me, swung his arm, and swept all the dishes and bowls off my table. A crashing sound followed as porcelain shattered across the floor. I remained seated, my expression utterly unmoved. Hearing the noise, the bodyguards rushed in immediately. Positioning themselves by the door, I raised my hand slightly, signaling them to hold. "Well, something to say." I picked up my napkin leisurely, dabbing the corner of my mouth. John knew perfectly well that once that personnel announcement was sent, it couldn't be undone. Meaning, from today on, he was nothing, reverted back to that lowly status where no one paid him any attention. He gritted his teeth, veins bulging on his face. "Of course I don't agree. No one informed me in advance. I don't recognize this arrangement. As long as I don't sign, what can you do to me? Don't forget, I signed a contract with the company. Labor law protects employees. Emily Johnson. Don't think I know nothing. I sneered, thinking he was still daydreaming. John Smith. I never beat around the bush. Once I say something, I never take it back. Let me repeat. I've tolerated you for a long time. All these years you've held the title of general manager. How many benefits have you embezzled privately? Do you really think I'm unaware? If you want to pursue legal action, go ahead. But I'll remind you. Prison food might not be as palatable as you imagine. His eyes flickered, panic flashing across his face. He opened his mouth but couldn't utter a word. But I did contribute to the company. That money should be rightfully mine. I raised my hand to cut him off. John. Don't make me say it twice. I don't want to lose my temper. But you'd better shut up now and get out of my sight. Probably because my tone was icy. He stood there, throat bobbing, not daring to make a sound. I snapped my fingers. The bodyguards immediately stepped forward, grabbed him, and dragged him out unceremoniously. Pass the word down. This person is never to set foot near here again. After that day, I never saw John again. I thought he'd listen and vanish quietly, never bothering me. But I underestimated his shamelessness. It was beyond imagination. Since I officially became president of the Johnson Family's Corporation, my daily schedule has been packed, either in meetings with executives or making appearances at various dinner parties and cocktail events. News travels fast in high society. My public betrayal at the engagement party had already spread like wildfire. Though I remained composed at the time, what could I do? It had happened. It was too late for words. But openly, no one dared to gossip in front of me. After all, the power I wield now isn't something they can risk offending. After that dinner ended, I got up to head to the restroom and sober up. I'd only taken a few steps when a waiter suddenly blocked my path, since it was still during the pandemic. Hotel staff wore masks. I couldn't see his face clearly, but those eyes staring at me felt oddly familiar. Emily. He slowly removed his mask, and I recognized him instantly. My brows furrowed in annoyance. I tried to pull my hand back, but he gripped it tightly. The next second, he shouted my name loudly, startling everyone nearby, and all eyes turned to us. Emily. John seemed desperate to draw attention, deliberately causing a scene. The event was winding down. Many guests preparing to leave, but they paused at the commotion. Gazes fixed on us. I took a deep breath. My head was fuzzy from alcohol, but irritation boiled inside. I was about to summon the bodyguards to eject him, but he spoke first, tears streaming down, looking pitiful. Emily, I was wrong. I truly know it. I shouldn't have done those awful things to hurt you. As he spoke, he sobbed, voice cracking. People around murmured and pointed. When I stayed silent, he thudded to his knees. They say a man's pride is in his knees. Yet he knelt without hesitation. I felt disgusted, looking down on him utterly. Get up first, I said coldly. He could be shameless, but I wouldn't embarrass myself publicly with him. The engagement party was already infamous from his scandal. Did he want more mockery? But John mistook my silence for softening, instantly putting on a fawning act. Emily, it's my fault. I was foolish. How could I ask you to accept my child with someone else? Saying this, he began slapping himself. I was wrong. I shouldn't have been tempted and strayed. Emily, all the blame is mine. I've already returned the child to Sophia Williams. Can you give me another chance? He looked up eagerly, full of hope. I sneered, a sarcastic curl at my lips. So the child's mother was his first love, Sophia, the one he couldn't win over in college. Now coming back for scraps. Truly, his shamelessness was unmatched. I'm truly filled with regret now. You hate me, resent me, accept it all. But I beg you, don't make me leave the Johnson family. Don't fire me from my position. Without this job, I really can't survive. At this point, he completely broke down emotionally, like a woman in mourning, covering his face and bursting into tears. Oh my God, I never expected this. Is it because of that engagement party incident? Did Emily Johnson want to kick John Smith out? No wonder they're almost married. And John is raising an illegitimate child on the side, clearly being cheated on. This is going to be quite a show. I almost blurted out a curse. Who would have thought John could do such a shameless thing? Since he doesn't feel embarrassed, I don't mind making him look even worse. John, on your engagement day, you held that illegitimate child and tried to force me to adopt it. And I refused. Now you're pulling this again, forcing me in front of all these people to let you back into the Johnson family. In warfare, strategy is key, but this is just a dirty trick. I turned to leave, but as soon as I moved, he panicked, jumping up to grab me. Just as his fingers were about to touch me, a force from the side yanked me away. When I came to my senses, I was in a man's arms. This man was my arch-nemesis Michael Brown. The name sounds gentle, but the man, not at all. He was looking down, his eyes gentle as if they could drip with tenderness. Emily, your taste in men is getting worse and worse. What's the use of being handsome with a mouth so annoying? I tried to break free, but he clamped down on my wrist and swiftly pulled me out of the banquet hall. By the time I realized it, I was sitting in the back seat of a Bentley. What are you doing? I haven't exposed his dirty secrets in public yet, remembering how Head humiliated me earlier. I was about to fight back when he forcibly dragged me away, leaving me fuming and ready to explode. Michael leaned back in his seat, tilting his head to look at me. I remember you used to be so decisive. Why are you so messy and indecisive handling this nonsense now? His eyes were full of laughter, teasing. I didn't want to engage, so I shut my mouth. He stared at the back of my head, his tone light, silent when unhappy. That habit still hasn't changed. He chuckled, his voice lowering. I just saved you, and instead of thanking me, you give me attitude. I don't owe you money. I was already irritated, and his rambling on made it unbearable. Who asked you to save before I could finish? A blinding light suddenly rushed toward USA truck was barreling straight at us, its headlights so bright I couldn't open my eyes. My mind went blank, my whole body frozen, completely clueless what to do. Even scarier, no matter how I turned the wheel, it didn't respond, and the brakes failed. In the last seconds before impact, Michael pulled me into his arms, shielding me tightly. Before losing consciousness, I faintly heard someone shouting by my ear, voice trembling but fierce. Emily, if you dare die, I'll never forgive you. When I woke up, I felt like I'd been run over by a truck multiple times. My neck, arms, and legs were all wrapped in thick casts. Immobile. This car accident left me badly injured, and I knew it well. Just as I tried to shift slightly, the hospital room door opened. Michael walked in. He saw me awake and paused, but immediately, his eyes filled with joy. You're hurt pretty badly. But luckily it's all external injuries. No bones broken. Are you in pain anywhere now? I slowly shook my head. What exactly happened? I had a feeling this accident wasn't right. How could it be a coincidence that the steering and brakes both failed? My car is top-off-the-line, meticulously maintained and checked every 3-day sit. Couldn't possibly have such a flaw. Michael Brown nodded. The car was tampered with. He handed over a photo. In the photo, John Smith was holding my spare keys, opening my car door. What happened next wasn't hard to guess. Something even more explosive followed. Michael said something that almost made me sit up from the bed. What did you say? I glared at him. My neck hurt, but I couldn't care less. It turned out that the child John had been raising as his own son wasn't actually his biological child. It was Sophia Williams and her ex-husband's child. After her divorce, she secretly kept in touch with her ex-husband, but that man already had a new powerful ally. He was just messing around with Sophia for fun. After one time, Sophia got pregnant. Later, she met John, saw that he was thriving, and hatched a plan to make John the child's father, taking the blame for her. Who would have thought that John doted on that child so much? Yet there was no blood relation at all. I closed my eyes, my head buzzing with pain, But before I could have a few minutes of peace, the door was pushed open again. Sophia walked in, her face pale, holding the child in her arms. That vulnerable look was why John couldn't let her go. "Do you know where John is? I haven't been able to reach him lately." I almost laughed out loud. So, both of them were good actors. "John, don't you know he almost killed someone and is now wanted?" I said calmly, looking at her. On the day Michael found out the truth, John had already run away, and Sophia probably still didn't know how many dirty things her good man had done behind her back. Impossible. He has a child. How could he run? How could he abandon us? As she spoke, she began to sob. My mood was already bad, and she was putting on this sad act here, making me nauseous. "Sophia," I said coldly, "when you schemed to make John the child's father, did you ever think that he didn't love you that much? In this day and age, who still believes in feelings? Interest is what matters. Sincerity is worthless." She looked up abruptly, her face deathly pale, probably not expecting that I knew all these things. I didn't want to watch her performance anymore, so I waved my hand and had the nurse escort her out. "There's something I think you should know." I was extremely annoyed when I heard Michael speaking beside me. He sat by my hospital bed, meticulously peeling an apple for me. "What is it? Speak quickly if you have something to say. Otherwise leave. I need to rest properly. Don't you know you're pregnant? It's already 4 months. The doctor said the baby is developing well." They were quite surprised. After such a serious accident, "The baby is fine. I guess this little one is stubborn from the start. Resilient." When he said that, I suddenly remembered that there was indeed a child in my belly. But even if it's strong and tough, what's the use? Its father is disappointingly foolish. "Then, why didn't you tell me earlier?" I turned my head, staring at him, full of confusion. "After all, you are the child's biological father. How could you not know something like this?" "What are you talking about?" Seeing my shock, Michael slowly pulled out a document from behind and handed it directly to me. I recognized it at a glance. It was the contract I signed when I was drunk and out of my mind. But how did this contract end up in his hands? Could it be that night? "Yes. The person who was with you that night was me," he said softly, his tone calm but with undeniable certainty. "That day, he came out of the restroom and saw me staggering in, unsteady on my feet, my face flushed, worried. He silently followed me. I was too drunk to tell who was helping me. I just felt that figure, that warmth, reminded me of a once familiar feeling. In a daze, I let him lead me out of the private room, and what happened after was a blur. When I came to my senses, it was too late. He had quietly taken away that contract, originally intending to use it as leverage to force me to talk to him. He wanted me to be his girlfriend, but he never expected that the very next day, I held John Smith's hand and appeared in front of everyone. All his plans fell through just like that. "So, that night, it was really you." My voice trembled, and I almost didn't dare to look up at him. He didn't say anything, just stared at me and nodded heavily. A month later, I finally left the hospital. Michael Brown specially prepared a small cake for me in the villa, saying it was a celebration. He also invited a bunch of my and his friends, making it very lively. I was a bit confused, not knowing what he was up to. The villa was decorated with colorful balloons, looking like some special occasion. But after bringing me there, Michael disappeared. After quite a while, he slowly reappeared. What surprised me even more was that he was holding a new bag from my favorite brand, plus a bouquet of bright red roses. "Welcome home," he said softly, in a calm tone. But there was something hidden in his eyes, like tenderness or some other emotion I couldn't quite put my finger on. If the bag was a gift, then the flower clearly wasn't just a friendly gesture. Right. The friends present immediately started making a fuss, whistling, clapping, teasing. It turned into chaos. I was even made to blush, and my heart raced. "Thank you for doing so much for me and specially organizing this gathering," I said with a low laugh. "During my hospitalization, You were always with Mike. Must have been really hard for you. Michael stood in front of me. Expression calm. Voice unhurried. Is just saying thank you too perfunctory? My heart skipped a beat, as if something had hit it. Then, how do you want me to thank you? He looked at me, a slight smile curling at the corner of his mouth, his gaze serious. Not like he was joking. How about, in the days to come, you live with me,